Hello again everybody. So in this video I'm going to be doing a little bit of maintenance on my front brake. I'm going to be replacing the brake pads and giving it a general clean. Now the brake pads that are on my bike at the minute are actually the ones that came with it out of the factory. I bought this bike new about 4.5 years ago, so they've done pretty well. I can't remember exactly how many miles I've got on the bike. It's about 35,000 kilometres, so they have done remarkably well, but it is a high time I changed them, and as I say, just had this off, give it a good clean, make sure everything is still in good condition, inspect it and things like that. So let's crack on with that. Now, tools I'm going to be using for this, obviously I've got a socket to remove the two mounting bolts of the caliper. We've also got a bungee cord. Now you can use pretty much anything you like, a bit of wire, a bit of string or whatever. Basically this is just to support the caliper when I undo the bolts, so that it's not hanging off of the brake line. Obviously we've got our new pads, got a clean cloth, and this is a piston rewind kit. We'll get to that later. Brake cleaner, and apart from that I've got my torque wrench and magnetic dish. I love this thing because the amount of times in the past I've been working on bikes and of course things just get lost or go missing, so it's always useful to have one of these. You know, everything you take off the bike goes in here, and well, hopefully you don't lose it. Right, let's make a start. So I'm going to grab my bungee cord and this. Alright, so the first thing we're obviously going to do is undo the two mounting bolts, which on my bike are these two here. Now obviously the bike I'm working on is a Suzuki VanVan. You'd be surprised how many bikes have basically the same or very similar brakes. I mean, this Tokiko brake setup is very common on a lot of bikes, especially the Suzukis. I mean, you'll find the exact same brakes on the Suzuki Bandit, just there's two of them on each side. So that kind of gives you an idea of how common they are. Obviously once you get onto like the more sporty and more expensive bikes, they tend to have like Brembos and stuff, but how you actually do all this is pretty much the same. You know, only minor differences. At the end of the day, if you're unsure of anything, just check your service manual. So anyway, let's get these undone. So these are on fairly tight. They're not too bad. I'm just going to loosen both of these off for the minute. There we go. Right, is that going to come off hand tight? No. There we go, right, so take that one off. And then right, so that's one. And then this second one, I'm just going to support the caliper with my hand. I mean, it shouldn't like fall off or anything, but I'm just going to support it with my left hand whilst I'm undoing this other bolt. And then give it a bit of wriggle, off it comes. Right, so I'm going to feed this through here. And where can we hook this up? Can we hook it onto here? Yes. There we go. So you see the idea of this is just this will support the caliper rather than it hanging off the hose and pulling on any bits that we don't want it to. So let's turn this around, have a little look. So the first thing we're going to do is just inspect everything. I mean, as I say, this has been on the bike for the best part of 4.5 years without me basically touching it, so it's kind of bad. You should really inspect your brakes more often than that. I mean, bear in mind these are the things that allow you to stop. It's kind of a good idea to keep them maintained, so yeah, it's a bit bad that I haven't. Yeah, as you can see, my brake pads are quite worn down, so we'll get these out. We're also going to give these pistons a bit of a clean as well. You can see there's a bit of corrosion on there, so we'll give those a bit of a clean. Excellent. Okay, right. So another thing we're going to need is, if I can find them, here we go, some needle nose pliers. And there's a bit of an extra thing. You don't necessarily need it, but I always like to have it. An old toothbrush. Very handy for getting into the bits that you can't get to with a cloth or anything else. And also, this is metal polish, so we're going to use that on the pistons. Right. So the first step is to remove the little pin that goes through this larger pin, which is, I don't know if you guys can see this, just here. So using the needle those pliers, I'm just going to pull that out, and then before we lose it, it's going in the dish. Ah, come on, there we go. There we go. Right, so now, assuming your brakes aren't hideously corroded, this pin should just slide out like so. So let's have a little look at this. So this isn't too bad, it's a little bit of corrosion from the road, but again we'll give that a good clean off, and I like to give these a very light bit of grease as well when I put them back in, so I'll get onto that later. That goes in there. Right, so now we've taken that pin out, the front pad here just lifts up and slides off, and then the rear pad just basically falls out, and then you want to be careful not to lose this metal thingy here, so I'm just going to take that off actually, and just sort of take note of the orientation. You see there's this little tab here that goes around the back, so it goes this way around, so put that back in there, oh, not back in there, but put that in there. So that's that lot. So now we've got basically the pistons here and the slider. Now this slider is kind of in the way of me cleaning these pistons, so I'm actually going to remove it and check, because inside here you've got pins, and you can see, because this caliper only has 2 pistons. Some calipers have 4 pistons, like pistons each side that close like this. This one, what it does is it has the pistons on one side that push, and then the rest of the caliper slides, and it slides on these sliders at the top here. So if we pull back these seals like so, give this a bit of a slide. I'm going to take that out of there as well, because this slider now is going to pop out, and we're just going to put that there for a minute, and then I'm going to hang this on this one here just for a second. Okie dokie. Right, I'm just going to put this somewhere a bit cleaner, because as you can actually see, these are in quite good condition and they're well greased as well, so I don't really want to get any crap on them. So I'm just going to stick them over here, out of the way of all the dust and stuff. Right, let's have our brake cleaner down here. Okay. So the inside, the outside of these sort of rubber covers is pretty good. It's not degraded too much or anything. The inside is absolutely perfect. Anything on the caliper that's made of rubber or anything like that can be replaced. You can buy replacement parts from the dealership or online, whatever. As you can see, I mean, this just kind of squeezes in through this hole. So if it is badly, you know, because rubber over time it does obviously deteriorate. So if it is badly deteriorated, you can obviously clean that, but that's absolutely fine for now. So what I'm actually going to do, because I'm going to be rewinding these pistons a bit anyway, I'm just going to pump them out a tiny bit. Now, if you're going to do this, be careful not to pump them out too much, because otherwise they will just come out, and then you'll end up with brake fluid leaking out, you'll end up with air in the system, and you'll have to bleed it. Now, for me this wouldn't be a massive issue, because I'm intending to replace the brake fluid anyway, but just if you're going to do this and you don't intend to replace all the brake fluid, don't pump it too much. But if I just give the front brake thing a bit of a push, and you can see one comes out a bit more than the other, so I'm going to hold that in place so I can push the other one out a bit as well. Okay, excellent. And then I've got a toothbrush, and just, you can see there's like a bit of stuff here that's obviously accumulated off the road, so I'm just going to brush that off. And then you can also see we've got some bits of corrosion around the piston here. Now, when you put new brake pads in, so I'll show you, these are obviously the old ones, you can see how there's not much material left on there, which obviously means that the pistons are pushed out a little bit in order to compensate for that. But because we're putting new pads in, which, if I get these down here, you can see obviously, actually let's get these out. He says, come on, out you come. Yeah, so you can see the material on that is obviously much thicker. So we're going to have to push these pistons back a bit in order to fit new pads in. But if you've got bits of corrosion on them, when you push them back, you're going to damage the seals in here. So that's the other thing. Behind these pistons are obviously seals which prevent dirt from getting in and also create a seal to stop brake fluid from coming out. Now obviously they're also made of rubber, and over time they do deteriorate. Now in my case, let's give it a bit of a clean around here. I do actually have some new seals, and at some point soon I will replace them, but for now, because they don't seem to have deteriorated too much, or at all really, and because I've not got any leaks or issues, I'm not going to worry about it just yet. I'm going to save that for a month or so's time when I've got a little bit more time to do some maintenance on this. Let's just give it a general, there we go. Give it a clean inside there as well, why not? Yeah, so in a later video we'll actually pop these out completely, give them a proper going over, and then obviously replace those seals. Okay, so I've given them a bit of a clean up, and as you guys can see there's a bit heavier corrosion, well it's not actually corrosion, it's actually like a build up of stuff on the edges of the piston here. As I say, in a later video when I take these out and do a proper overhaul I will get rid of those, but for the time being this isn't too bad. I've given it a clean up around, and we're only going to be rewinding the piston to about sort of just before this corrosion anyway, so it's not going to affect us now. Obviously if that was further back then I would have to consider giving these a proper clean off now, but as I say, don't have a huge amount of time right now, so I'll do that at a later point. So moving on to the next thing before we do rewind those, let's just give this caliper a good, let's get this rag underneath as well, there we go, good clean off. Right, what's that? Get rid of that. Okay. Just blasting away any rubbish that's got trapped in there. It's looking pretty good. Just give it a quick blast around here. Okie dokie. Right. Also just need to there it goes. Excellent. Right. Give this disc a bit of a clean whilst we're at it. So I should point out the brake disc on mine. So the service manual recommends replacing the disc when it gets to 3.5 millimeters in depth. Mine is currently sitting at about 4.5, so it's got about another mil to go before it needs replacing. So I'm not going to do that just yet either. Right, so now we've given the caliper a bit of a clean. It's time to put it back together. So the first thing we need to do is rewind these pistons. Now, this job is a hell of a lot easier with the tool. Obviously if you don't have this, there are other ways of doing it, but from experience of doing it those other ways, having the tool is just better. Right. So, one of these is right-handed, one of them's left. What are the chances the one I've bent is the right-handed one? Yeah, of course it is. There we go. Okay, so we need to find whichever one of these fits those. To be honest, that'll probably do it. Perfect. Alright, that goes on there like that. So basically how this works is it sits inside. Oh no. Oh, I've done that wrong. Oh wait, no I haven't. That just needs rewinding. Okay. It sits in here like that. However, looks like I have to take that off for a minute. Can I get that in there? Oh no. It's going to be a pain, isn't it? I'll have to try and push these in a little bit by hand. Yes, okay. There we go. Oh. See if we can get that one back a little bit as well. Yes, we can. In actual fact, to be perfectly honest, in this instance I probably don't need the piston rewind tool. If your pistons are a bit difficult to get back, to push back, then you probably do need this, but in my case they seem to be going back quite easily, so okay, we won't worry about that then. Another thing when you're rewinding the pistons that can help is if you take the top off your master cylinder as well. Just allows the pressure to be pushed back up, but as I say, in my case they went back by hand really easily, which is quite surprising. As I say, these tools can be fantastic. This one's actually for a car, so it's got the smaller things for bikes as well, but you know. There we go. Wasn't expecting it to be that easy. So all we've got to do now then is put all this back together. Oh, and also nearly forgot, I'm going to give this a bit of a clean. So let's give that a bit of that. Now I'm just going to clean that off. Just want to make sure on this pin that there's no corrosion and no sort of bit sticking out, because the pads, as the rest of the caliper slides, the pads slide across this pin as well, and it's a good idea just to make sure it's nice and clean and smooth, which that now is. Okay, right, so there's one new pad, another new pad. There's our little metal thing, which if you remember, this tab went on that side. And then, we just have our slider, which again, we've got this pin here, which the pads also slide on. So again, just give it a clean, make sure that it's smooth, doesn't have any major issues. Right, so slide these back in there, and then push these seals back in place so that they're seated correctly on there. No, I'll pull it off that side now. There we go. Just check that all round. Yep, that's good. Okay, right, so here's our little metal thing, correctly orientated, and slide that back on there. Okay, so now we're going to put the pads back in. So this is the rear one, and as you can see, the holes, I'll show you quickly. So you've got, on the rear pad it's only got the smaller hole, and on the front pad it's got the smaller one and the larger one. The larger one obviously goes on that bigger pin at the back, and these smaller ones go through the pin at the front there. So what we do is sit this in place. Oh, he says like so. And we can see that it sort of clips in. We've got this bit here, clips in there, and this sort of sits under that bit there. And then our front pad here simply slides on like that, and then slides in like so. And then we can take this off of here, put it back through there, and take our pin, slide it through like so. Let's just get that like that. And then basically you want to twist this round. Yeah, thing is, twist this round so that the hole, don't know if you guys can see in there, the hole is in line with this bit here. And then we're going to take our pin. Now again, these things, obviously they can get broken over time, so if you need to, you can order new ones, but this is in good condition. So you can see it's got a wavy section and a straight section, so the straight section goes at the bottom, and just pushes in through that hole, and then just locates on the pin like so. So that wave sort of locates around the pin, and that's not going anywhere. So that's it, all sorted. So now what we've got to do is put it back on the bike. So I'll take that off of there, grab one of our bolts, and right, I'm actually going to need to push these back a bit further. So let's get in there. There we go. That's got it. Okay, let's put this top one in. Now, this is an interesting one. So, if we have a look on the bolt that I've taken out of here, it has actually got a little bit of old thread lock on it. Now, the official service manual doesn't mention putting thread lock on this. It does mention a torque setting to tighten these up to. So I'm not going to put thread lock on these because, as I say, the service manual doesn't say anything about it. Now I know some of you will go, "Oh, that's stupid, you should put thread lock on," but that's not necessarily the case, because the interesting thing about thread lock is that when you obviously first put it onto the bolt, it actually acts a bit like a lubricant, and that can actually sort of give you a false thing when you're trying to do things up to a specified torque. So if they specify not using thread lock and using a specific torque, use the torque setting, not the thread lock, because the thread lock acting as a lubricant will sort of make it easier to turn and will actually mean you end up over tightening the bolts. So unless the service manual says otherwise, I don't bother. There are some things the service manual doesn't say about using thread lock on, which I do, like the bolts on the side panels and things like that, just as a matter of personal preference. But when it comes to things like this, I tend to follow the service manual to the letter, just because, you know, Suzuki are the guys that made this bike in the first place. They know what they're talking about, so I have no reason not to trust them. So, grab our handy torque wrench, and the settings on my bike, again yours may vary, but for my specific bike the torque settings for these two bolts is 39 Newton meters. Now that will be right about there. So start with this bottom one. There we go. Good, right. Take that down. And I'm just going to get our cloth, give everything a bit of a going over. Right, and then the last thing we need to do, grab the key, move this light out of the way. Come here. There we go. Take this off of here. So where we've obviously rewound the pistons and put the new pads in and that, just need to pump the brake lever a few times until we feel it biting. And then finally, just gonna take it off the stand. Just make sure, take it out of gear as well. No, that's still in gear. There we go. Okay, that's interesting. There we go. And just make sure it rolls, make sure it stops. Just checking that it rolls freely, that we haven't got any resistance or anything like that. Excellent. There we go. Let's put that back on there. Come here. There we go. There we go, guys. All there is to it. It's really quite a simple job to do, but it's definitely one that's worth doing because, as I say, if your brake pads, especially like mine, look like this, it's definitely high time you change them. I am impressed though. I mean, as I say, these are the factory pads. These have been on for 4.5 years and done over 36,000 kilometres, so I really can't complain. I don't know what brand these are. See if oh, they are Tokiko ones as well. Oh, fair enough. There we go. Nice. As I say, there we go, guys. Hopefully this was a useful video to you. If it was, please do give it a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. Go check out my other videos. And for now, as always, I'll catch you guys again soon.